Hello and welcome. Today we've got Mark and Jay, and today we are going to be discussing the possible collapse of the banking system and how gold is sound money and what it means. Now, just before we begin, you can subscribe to my Instagram channel at nicholas.veniamin, where you can follow all my daily news reels. Mark and Jay, thank you both so much for joining me today. How are you and what have you been up to? We go with Mark first.
Hey, Nicholas, good to see you. We had a chance to actually physically meet here a couple of weeks ago since our last broadcast. So I have to tell you, it was just for all the listeners and viewers out there, I have to tell you, Nicholas is just as real as they come. Everything you see here on this program is who he is. He's a genuine person. I got to tell you, it was great meeting you. Doing awesome, doing very, very well. I wanted to bring Jay on because we have Jay's been part of our community and just an outstanding, incredible leader and so knowledgeable. But I'm honored to be back on. Thanks so much for having me.
No, thank you so much. And also it was a great honor to meet you as well. It was really, really nice. And I look forward to meeting you again, Mark.
Me too.
And Jay, thank you so much for coming on. And what is it that you would like to share with the viewers today of importance?
I think there's so many interesting things happening right now around the world. I'm in Ontario, Canada, so of course I'm seeing a little different perspective than you are, and as well as Mark is. But I think there's some common denominators, and one of my field of studies is in mind control. So I'm watching sort of.
Oh, your sound's gone off there, Jay.
My sound went off.
That's it. It just went off, but now I can hear you again.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, that's okay. It happens.
I find the distractions of what's happening right now around the world. In other words, oh look, aliens. Oh look, the king has cancer. Oh look, Super Bowl. Like there's so many distractions that are happening right now to keeping us away from actually paying attention to what's happening. And one of the things that Mark and I were discussing before we came in the call is bail-ins. That a lot of people don't understand what a bail-in is, and people who have been programmed. That's my field of study, is the programming and the mind control. We've been programmed to follow a system in a certain way. And the system is, put your money in the bank and put it in these, portfolios. I'm not saying that, that there's not some merit to that, but there's some options that we're not taught. And one of the dangers of the banking system right now that a lot of people are not aware of, that I'm talking to, is bail-ins. They don't understand the concept of a bail-in, and that to a certain extent, only a small percentage of your money is actually protected by a government program. And anything over and above that, the bank can help themselves to it if they run into a crisis.
And no, of course, definitely. Mark, do you have anything to add to that?
No, she's 100% right. I mean, it was, and just so everybody understands what happened, it was after 2008 when we had the big housing crisis here, and you had all the bailouts take place, and the government stepped in and bailed out all of these banking institutions and financial institutions. They passed the Dodd-Frank Act the very next year. Now, that was designed to protect the banks, but it also made those people who were the depositors now creditors, in a sense, with the bank. And so everybody in the U.S., for example, has up to $250,000 in FDIC insurance. That means that what you have in the bank up to $250,000 is going to be insured. I'll tell you something about that in just a second. Considering the fact that the FDIC only has billions of dollars in assets and they're protecting trillions of dollars, that's not really a good, safe place to be, in my personal opinion. They don't have enough to cover all of the stuff that they're supposedly insuring. And the second thing is that, like Jay was just saying, anything above and beyond that is now, if the bank goes insolvent, they need to go out there and get money. They're not going to get it from the government. They're going to get it from all of those people out there who've got their money in excess of $250. They're going to pay off their debts. They're going to give you back whatever's left on a prorated portion, in a prorated amount. And so there's people out there who are good people, people who are independent business owners, moms and pops, people who are not the huge corporations, who have their money in their local banks. You can go online and you can actually hear Janet Yellen telling the senator from Oklahoma that they were not going to cover those smaller independent banks, where they said, oh, they have to go through this process of everybody's got to agree in all these places, which there's no way they would on some of those smaller ones. They did cover Citizens, what happened with the banks out west, because that's where a lot of the people and the tech people had their money, and the politicians had their money as well. And Silicon Valley Bank, for example, that sort of thing. But they're not going to cover the smaller banks. And so this relationship that we have with our local bank teller, where you go in, you get to know them, they know your family, you know their family. It's not going to be existent anymore, because now it's going to be just more central. It's not going to be something where the small banks are even going to be around. This is what's coming. I'm making projections. Again, we're not financial planners. We're not tax experts. We're not giving you anything other than our own opinion. But all you have to do is look so far as history as to what happened in some of these other countries that have gone through some of this, and you'll be able to see it. They want to go to a central banking digital currency system.
Absolutely.
It's been said.
Of course. Now, Jay, I want to ask you, what would happen when the dollar collapses? How do you foresee the future the way it's going right now with the dollar possibly collapsing?
Well, that's an interesting question, because what I've been studying in the last while is the fiat currency, and fiat currency has a 100% failure rate. It always collapses. That's been the history anyway. So I don't think we expect anything different to happen. It's a matter of which way it goes. And so, yes, in Canada, I know that we're being primed for this digital currency. We're also being primed for 15-minute cities and all kinds of other things. So, we're kind of being railroaded into that. I think that, anybody who is paying attention, I think that they're going to start looking into barter. They're going to look at different ways in which that they can trade. And I also believe the reason that I got into the metals a few years ago was because over the last 6,000 years, I mean, metals, gold and silver, the sound money, God's money, the earth's money, has stood the test of time. That's not a way to get wealthy. It is wealth. It is how we have kept ourselves afloat for, as I said, for 6,000 years. So I think, from watching everything, that we know that the history is that the currency does collapse. If there is, something electronic that comes in behind us, then I think we have to pay attention, be a little bit suspicious of what that is, especially if it is something that's controlled centrally. That's exactly what we're trying to move away from, is the decentralized. In Canada, it's a little different situation than the US, in the sense that we don't have a lot of the small regional banks. We have some credit unions, but for the most part, we only have like the big six, the banks that pretty much control everything. And what I find is really fascinating with them right now is that they have been, hoarding thousands of tons of gold, but yet they're not suggesting you do the same thing. And so I find that really fascinating. and, as I said, Mark and I, that's what, we're looking into, and we're helping others do, is to take responsibility and to support their hard-earned money, everything that they've worked for their whole lives, by putting it into sound money, into something that, as I said, for 6,000 years has certainly stood the test of time.
Is that what you're doing, Jay? Are you doing that as well?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So I have some physical metals in my possession, physical metals in the vault, as well as collector items. So a nice balance between sort of an offense and defensive strategy.
Absolutely. And you advise, well, no, we're not financial advisors, but obviously from looking, having silver and gold is obviously much better than having fiat currency, because fiat currency can collapse, whereas silver and gold is sound money. So even a 5-year-old can figure that out. But what does taking responsibility mean?
I think, let's go back to that confusion factor, that I think when people are confused and they are looking somewhere for some stability, and they're looking for an answer. And the way that I have studied the mind control that has been going on the last, probably 100 years anyway, is that we are funneled into believing that the authorities have our best interest at heart, and that we are to wait for them to give us the signal or give us the advice as to what's to happen next. And, we like to call them our surrogate parents. It's like, what is it that we need to do? Where should we go? Are we allowed to do this? Can we do that? And this is the time in our history that we need to step up and take responsibility. We need to, as I said, follow people like you, get the information that we need, and do our diligence, and then look into I think a lot of people are pointing to diversity in terms of portfolios, and that's probably great advice. I mean, again, I'm not a tax advisor, a financial planner, but I think diversity at any point, it's like diversity of food in your diet, is probably a good stability factor. But again, going back to the metals to give you that concrete, that solid foundation. So no matter what happens, that's going to carry you through.
Absolutely. The memberships that all three of us are involved in with 7K, which I think is a great program and strategy for having, precious metals, which is sound money. Because we have to take responsibility for the future when the dollar collapses, and that's what we're doing. We're not being taught this in schools because we know the schools are corrupt. They don't teach you how to save money or how to think like an entrepreneur. This is when people do well in life, it's because they went through hardships after school and learning all of this by themselves. And that's what we're doing. We're learning right now. And this great strategy that we have, Mark, I want to ask you, because I know you've been talking that this is a big thing now in Europe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we're really now expanding into Europe. We're opening up a lot of countries over there. And so, if people know people over there, let's get the word out. I guarantee you there's sometimes people, they'll hear this and they'll say, oh yeah, but then this is what we all do. Even myself, even knowing what's going on, we tend to go through our daily lives like, okay, well, maybe the collapse will come, but I don't see it happening tomorrow. That's what we're always thinking. And I don't want any of this stuff to happen. But we got to be prepared for it. And here's the thing I'll tell everybody, and I'll get into what you're talking about with Europe, is that I think we all would agree with the censorship that we're seeing, with the political attacks on Trump and all the garbage stuff that they got going at him legally. It's all 100% about control. They're not making decisions for the betterment of people. They're doing it for control. And if anybody questions that, then this might not be the right idea for you. However, if they want control, what's the best way to go out there and get it? It's to basically take away first off food and take away people's money. And so we seem to think that, when we're printing all this money, oh, we're good. We're good people. We're helping the people in the world. We're crushing our economy. We are crushing the US dollar being the world's reserve currency. And when we don't produce stuff here in the US, and all of a sudden we're dependent upon China for our stuff, for our going green, and our dollars aren't worth anything, where's it going to come from? It's not a pretty scenario that could be happening. And that's why we need to look at getting the word out about this. There are people, our US market is wide open, but now we're expanding into Europe. And honestly, I'll just tell people the value here is crazy for what people get in this membership. And I can validate it every day of the week. And, if people don't want to get it, don't get it. I don't care. I'm not here to twist anybody's arm, but I'll tell you, we need to get the word out about this because we're saving lives by getting this information in people's hands. They need to get ready for a changing world. And even if things don't change, this is still worth a lot more than this. And so,
absolutely, no, definitely. I think it's great. I mean, I've been part of this great strategy for 3 years now, and I think it's definitely amazing. It's changing my life. And Mark, you're doing a free webinar where people can sign on to for free. Where I'll leave the link below, where you're going to be showing them exactly how this strategy works.
Yeah, well, just reach out and then we'll send you a series of different times that you can hop on. And it's basically just sit and listen. Maybe you'll interact with us if you'd like to. We'd like to find out what you're looking for, but no one's going to twist your arm. No one's going to try and convince you of anything. It's just going to be like, look at what you have as an option out there. And then you make up your own mind. But I think people definitely need to know. And we will offer that for them.
Absolutely. Well, Mark and Jay, thank you both for so much for explaining everything and your viewpoints. Jay, is there anything else that you'd like to say to the viewers before we finish?
Actually, I would. The one thing that I think is a little bit scary for a lot of people is that if they're venturing out into something that's in unfamiliar territory, that they are afraid to do it alone, or maybe they don't trust themselves. Maybe they don't have the information that they need. And, the benefit, the huge intangible benefit in this membership program is the community. So, there's a saying, you have to do it by yourself, but not alone. And so when you enter into this, as soon as you crack that door open and say, I'm in, that's when you start to get educated and you start to meet the community and you start to see the resources, the abundance around you that is there to support you. And this isn't something that you have to figure it on your own. This is something that we are all doing together. And the community, as Mark said, now expanding into Europe, I think we're in like 7 countries now. So this is far from being isolated. You might be running away from one herd, and maybe you feel that there's some safety in the herd of doing things like you've always done them, but you're running towards a new herd that is, growing in substance and knows the way.
Well, absolutely. And Mark, is there anything else that you'd like to say?
Nah, just that, yeah, we are expanding. It's 10 countries now. Actually, we've actually just expanded, so we're even bigger than that. But I mean, the biggest thing I would just tell people is don't procrastinate. We all think we got plenty of time. And even if you don't have the money to do something to invest right now, you still want to look into it because you want to know what the options are. So I would just tell people, get prepped. And I'll tell you, last thing I'll mention here real quickly is the community we're building here. We get people of all walks of life. We got people who know about how to farm. We have people who know about how to, we have people who own, for example, lumber yards. We have people who have all these different skill sets and trades. And so if everything fell apart, the community we're building here and with the gold and silver that we're accumulating, we have a way that we can barter between each other and still build that relationship with people who have things that can keep our community and our society going. And that's what, if we have community, we're going to have everything, even if everything starts falling apart around us.
Absolutely. Well, guys, thank you very much. I'm going to leave the link below so that you can access this free webinar. All you have to do is leave your name and email address, and Mark will contact you for an appointment. But thank you very much, and I'll speak to you guys very soon. You take care, and God bless you. Bye-bye.
And you. Thank you, Nicholas.